Welcome to Classical
Rebellion.
And it's been
We're back.
years.
COVID was just getting going the last time that we were addressing ourselves to you.
Yep.
And there's been a lot of water under the bridge.
Indeed.
But it's time.
But I still have my t-shirt.
You do. It's time for a resurrection.
Ah, I like the way you're thinking.
Yeah.
So, what we're talking about is Mahler's Symphony No. 2. John was in the chorus. I was in the audience at San Diego Symphony Orchestra. I think they want the orchestra added now. I think they want to be San Diego Symphony Orchestra.
They'll be what I call them.
Instead of just San Diego Symphony.
Okay,
So,
well.
I went to the Friday concert. I wanted to go to Saturday, but I was told there wasn't a lot of availability on Saturday, so I opted for Friday. And
Wish you could have come on Sunday.
Sunday was the best.
Oh, yeah. Well, none of them were bad. They were all very, very good. It was a remarkable first time back. It was a great opportunity for me in the choral terraces, as they call it, to watch Raphael Pailleret at work at close range and watch how the orchestra responded to his conducting. There were the first night we're getting used to it a little bit. Second night there was a couple of second night little things, nothing that would have been perceptible as far as actually affecting the performance.
Sure.
But Sunday was just about perfect. It was really right out there. And everybody was there, all together, right out there.
Right. Okay.
It was like a mad world. We just went sailing right out there. And it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
A lot of fun.
My experience on Friday was it's a long evening. I think the piece should have just been presented by itself.
Absolutely. I mean, what is the point of putting on a curtain raiser of forgettable movie music by somebody named Larcher? I kept thinking of Archer, the comedian. You want to see your terrorist? There's your terrorist, Beardsley McTurbanhead. That's Larcher or Archer. And I mean, it's just
I thought you were going to go with the large.
The large. No.
The Larch.
It was meaningless in the context, absolutely meaningless in the context of Mahler's Second Symphony. Give me a break.
All I can think of is, so Pailleret premiered it in Montreal, then he presented it here in 2022. Maybe he saw this as a chance to get the piece in front of a bigger audience because
it wasn't worth premiering.
Okay.
I'm sorry, it's just insignificant music. And we get that a lot these days. Remember the garages of the San Fernando Valley or whatever it is?
It's of the valley. I think it was Silicon Valley.
Whatever. I mean, that is just ridiculous.
Yeah. It was in three parts. The second part, I believe, just guessing, had some music that actually developed in a way that I could comprehend and follow, and I thought it had a sense of beauty, but it was short-lived. But it proved to me that this composer could do it, but just doesn't.
What does it have to do with death and resurrection?
What's time?
That may be, but I mean...
That's the name of the piece.
Resurrection is when time is over.
True, that is the...
It's an inane juxtaposition, so...
Right. So for me, the Mahler Second, I have a history with the piece.
Mm-hmm.
When I was 23-ish, maybe, it was my favorite piece of music. My dad came down and visited. I don't know why he was in town, actually, but he happened to be here by himself without my mom and brothers and sisters, or brother and sisters. And I made him sit in my college dorm room and listen to all 80 minutes of a recording of the Mahler Second Symphony.
And he did?
And he did.
What a devoted dad.
His credit, yeah. Well, he's a baby boomer, and say what you want about the boomers, and I will. They do have at least a respect for classical music because they were educated in music in a way that is gone away, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I spent years chasing the dragon of the ultimate resurrection theme that the horns present in the last movement. From recording to recording to recording. I worked at Tower Records, so I was able to open recordings, play them, put the disc back in, and reseal it, and put it back on the shelf. So before streaming now, you can just listen to as much as you want, or even on YouTube, but if you don't want to pay for a music service. So I arrived at the Bernstein video of Mahler's second from the cathedral in England. I can't remember which one.
Ely.
As being the ultimate.
Well, that might be.
That short
Yeah.
motive. I just went searching over and over for it.
I was watching that the other night. You might be right. That might be an ultimate.
Yeah. So, but I'd say for the past 10 to 15 years, I'll be 53 on Sunday, so it's been 30 years since this was my favorite piece of music. Mahler's dead to me. I feel it just does absolutely nothing for me, any of his music anymore. And I don't know why. I don't know how that happened, why that happened. It just happened. So for me, the concert was all about the last 6 minutes, which were glorious. It was fantastic. And the chorus was worth every dollar spent. They actually spent some money on a chorus.
Mm-hmm.
And
they hired professionals.
It sounded like a professional chorus.
It did. Felt like it too.
Yeah. It was well balanced with the orchestra. The quality of the sound was phenomenal. The tenors even sounded good, which is
yes, they did.
Just not always, almost never the case.
Well, I mean, I Mahler's far from dead to me. But I mean, I wasn't really going around listening to the second anytime recently, but I've known it for years. My first exposure to it was the Otto Klemperer recording with Elizabeth Schwarzkopf in very high quality monophonic sound, which never,
mono?
Yeah, it is, but it never bothered me. It's an EMI frontline recording, and it still deserves to be.
It's a classic.
It's a classic. It blew my mind, and has continued to do so through the years. But actually, during this run, and I'm kind of embarrassed to say so, but I have come to a new appreciation of this piece because I realize that every single bit of it, practically, or vast tracks, is motivically motivated by the Dies Irae. The first four notes of the Dies Irae are the key to this piece.
Really?
Ya-da-dum, or ya-da-da-dum. And it only makes sense. It's all about death. The whole first four movements are all about death. The fourth movement is the summoning of all of the categories of the dead. You've got that wonderful chorale theme. Ya da dee da dee da 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 da. Ya da da dum. Dies Irae. Sure. Those were probably knights, noble characters who are being brought forth to judgment. Then you've got like the ya-ta-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-dum theme where they're
that's vaudeville.
Well, it is. It's how should we say, eschatological vaudeville. But those are the goats being chased out of the resurrection. You're done. Get out. And they're just
but I thought everyone made it in this resurrection.
No.
I think everyone.
No, it's a Catholic work. Sorry about that, but this is a Catholic work. It would have to be for him because Mahler
converted.
Mahler was a Jew, but born a Jew. And he converted to Catholicism probably so that he could...
professional reasons.
Well, for whatever his professional reasons.
So in Austria, before you had to get your Nazi card, you had to get your Catholic card to get a job, to get a post.
This is a long time before Nazism. But here's the deal. he didn't give up on that either. I mean, and to be even more explicit, in the Eighth Symphony, you've got the first movement of the Eighth is a massive Veni Creator Spiritus.
Yep.
That's very specifically Catholic. This is not a specifically Catholic work. There's nothing. What it is an expression of faith in the final judgment, the resurrection of the flesh, and I mean, he does it's in general terms, and he does it gloriously. But that theme is all over it. Even the very first notes of the piece, yada da da dum, yada dum, da 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 dum. That's a 3-note snippet of the beginning of the Dies Irae, and it happens all over the piece. I've never had a chance to sing the choral writing before, and I'm so impressed by it. It's so well written. Oh, so well written.
I will say that about Mahler. He knew how to write for singers in a way that very few composers
Yes.
did.
Yes, he did.
The orchestra never covers the singer, ever.
No, he writes in a range where
Yeah.
the voices are going to, like high brass, they're going to come out over the orchestra. Now, we had 80 people in the choir.
Yep.
That could easily have been 280. And from where we were sitting, we couldn't hear each other. I have problems with this
setup.
choral terrace setup. I mean, I don't really think it works. Better to be
sounded
tighter
good in
in
the
a
hall.
group. It may have, but we can't hear it. I mean, in the second performance, I'm pretty sure because this is a remarkable thing. The range for the basses goes from B flat below low C.
Yeah.
That's pretty low.
That's growling. Yeah.
To high G. That's baritone range. Now, he splits the bass part for the low B flat, but he doesn't split the bass part for the high G. It's written there for everybody.
True.
Now, most of the contrabasses didn't sing it, but nevertheless, what I'm saying is it's not an accommodating vocal part. It's an exacting one, but it is so richly textured and so beautifully done. I mean, the guy could write choral music. I'm filled with admiration for his work.
What do you think about the soloists?
I thought they were a bit tired.
Yeah.
I thought that the soprano didn't really
There's not a
sound
lot
like
of
much of a
solo.
soprano. And I thought she sounded more like a mezzo. And Anna Larson, I thought, sounded a bit
Long in the tooth.
stopped up.
Yeah.
And I understand that she has quite a pedigree with this work and has
Yes,
done
she
it all
does.
over the world for a lot of
Yep.
people. But I don't know. I guess she was all right. But again, from the choral terraces, with her facing away from us, it was difficult to tell. But it did sound rather stoppered, as I would call it.
Right.
But all credit to her. They didn't do a bad job. They
No.
just weren't my ideal pairing. But
So
all in all, I thought the vocal parts were very effective dramatically, and
yeah.
well, I was going to say. So I mean, on the second night, I couldn't hear. I on the top G, I have a feeling that I splattered that note all over everybody around me, but I literally could not hear myself. I heard it on. I heard myself clearly on Friday night and on Friday and on Sunday. I didn't actually hear it.
I've never had that problem.
Well, but I couldn't hear. We couldn't hear the people across the stage from us. We couldn't hear the people down the row from us. So it was being strung out all the way around the stage in 2 rows like this is a lot different than being stacked up in 4 or 5 rows of people and singing as a body.
Yeah. It's even different than being on.
And here's
on an
another
opera
thing:
stage.
we've
On
got
an opera stage,
we've got a
you still
ceiling
gotta-
above us about this tall, and in European concert halls like the Royal Festival Hall, where you've got the terraces going around like that, and there's nothing above them. There's room for the sound to resonate. We didn't have that.
Yeah, because
I kind of think that idea is misconceived on this stage, but that's just me.
yeah. Well, it is what it's going. It's here to stay.
Yeah, but they at some point or another, they're going to have to add more terrace. Like they're going to have to add choir risers at the back to accommodate a larger group, because 80 people is not enough to do everything that there is to be done.
Yeah.
It's just not.
Okay.
But it's a good group. It's a very good group. I was impressed, and I liked the people that they hired. And I will say this as well: Andrew McGill,
The chorus
master, is very professional, very experienced. He teaches at Northwestern. He does choral prep for Pioret up at Montreal, and he may be back for the Mahler Third at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope he does. He's a really nice guy. Had the good sense to hire me, and he put together a great group. They brought him in specifically to help them put this group together.
Right. Yes, this was the first time, to my knowledge, that the San Diego Symphony Orchestra has paid significant attention and resources to a chorus.
Yeah.
Usually it's, hey, master chorale, learn this, and we'll pay you your, whatever the fee, $10,000 for the whole chorus to show up. This time they individually auditioned people. They had a paid professional corps, and then they had volunteers who...
But they're capable.
Paid,
they are the right volunteers.
But they still... The volunteers still auditioned. They weren't just...
Yeah.
It wasn't,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't just...
And
open for
it wasn't like... I think most of the people there were paid. I really... There was only... That I could tell, I only met two guys there from the master chorale.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how many women there might have been.
Right.
There were very few from the opera chorus.
There was out-of-town people from out of town.
And there were people from all across the country. There
Yeah.
were people from Georgia. There were people from Indiana.
Charleston.
Yeah, and people who McGill had worked with before. They came here, they auditioned, and they were hired to do this gig.
Yeah.
And I hope I get to work with him again. I really do.
Yeah.
I know he was very effective. Everything he said and his techniques of working with the chorus were to the point. There was no fluff.
Right.
And the chorus really turned too.
There was no...
I was
Imagine
very
you're
impressed.
floating on a cloud and you're always on the sunny side of the note. None of that?
No figurative direction. And I think the orchestra actually really played well too. Now on
Friday there was some...
there was one ragged entrance from the horns,
At least.
but they played well
Mm-hmm.
on Saturday and they played perfectly on Sunday. I mean, it was great. I mean, there were no moments of butt clenching embarrassment over a really badly cracked note, like if they were doing the Bruckner 4 and the guy goes,
Right.
which has happened.
No, it did happen last time.
I know, we were there.
Yeah.
That did not happen. I think Pioret really has them pretty well whipped up.
Well, he is a horn player.
Is he?
Yeah. Yeah,
Well-
you can watch Mahler's second from the Proms with him in the orchestra playing the horn.
Well,
With Anna Larson as the soloist, the contralto.
was that with the Simone Bolivar?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, it's impressive.
That's the last time I listened to the whole thing, start to finish, was several years ago. I came across that on YouTube, and I don't know why I started watching it. Except it said Youth Orchestra, I think. Simone Bolivar Youth Orchestra at the time is what it was. And so I started watching it, and I knew nothing about the system in Venezuela. I knew nothing about Dudamel except he was in Los Angeles. I knew nothing. And watching it, I thought, I think this orchestra looks at this conductor like they love him. I'd never seen anything like it. And so I was kind of enthralled by the energy between Dudamel and the youth orchestra, the Venezuelans. And then I found out what the story was, of course. But yeah, that was the last time I listened to the whole thing before
Well-
Friday night.
Yeah, I mean, it's just very impressive. I think the work that he does. On Sunday, man, he conducted like I don't want to say a demon in the resurrection. I want to say he conducted like a frenzied angel. You know, it was he was all over it, man. He was all over it, and the audience apparently were quite moved.
Yep.
The hall is beautiful, looks great. They've brought the back wall of the floor a lot further forward, and they've created some new reception rooms under there. I'm not sure that the sound's really a whole lot better than it was, but I'll get out there and find out.
It sounded good from where I was.
But I like that room anyway. I always have. I don't care if it's not a perfect concert hall. It is a mentally engaging place to be, and that's hard to cannot easily be said of a lot of modern concert halls.
Correct.
It is the architecture is beautiful. It's not like the Atlanta Fox and Arabian Fantasy with a starry sky, I mean, which is great for silent movies, but this is just genuinely dignified architecture and on a grand scale, and it's a joy. And my party who came on Sunday felt exactly the same way. They're like, we just love the place.
Oh, nice.
And I'm like, yeah, me too.
Where did they sit?
Up in the balcony.
Yeah.
House left.
Okay.
And they loved it. They just loved it. So I've got some of my young choristers, young singers from up there in Murrieta who are now on fire for both Gilbert and Sullivan and for Mahler and for the San Diego Symphony.
It won't last. No.
I think it will. I think it will.
It's just the strangest thing to me.
Well,
It's only Mahler. Like, I mean, there's specific pieces I really don't care to listen to again, but not complete.
I'm still a fan. I really have as of this performance, I have an increased appreciation for this piece in particular.
If I had a chance to go hear Das Lied von der Erde, I'd do that.
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing the third at the end of this year. I've never heard that live, and I'm looking forward to it. And I hope Andrew McGill will be there.
Yep.
And unfortunately, there's no part for male chorus.
No. Women's chorus and children. You could try to join the children.
Well, they'll hire probably St. Paul's.
Yes. That's the
go-to children's choir in the area. Although if I had a little more time, I probably could get some of my kids ready for it. But
they might be able to audition for St. Paul.
Well, they might be
if they want to make because my daughter did that for La Boheme. And was in La Boheme in the children's chorus in the second act with St. Paul.
I'll take that up with them.
Yeah.
But I think now that the symphony is back in Symphony Hall, I think it's the beginning of definitely of a new era. I mean, Resurrection, which is the subtitle of the Second Symphony, is obviously the appropriate piece for the reinitiation of the hall, for the reinitiation of the indoor concert series after Kofake, and it has great meaning. I think it was Martha Gellhorn came back in and
Gilmer.
Martha Gilmer came in and talked to us. We had a little reception they built some of the new reception rooms under the balcony where they had moved the wall forward. And she said it was everyone was terribly moved. And she said you have no idea how many people that I've seen backstage and front of house who had tears in their eyes.
Yeah.
And well, this piece will do that to you. I mean, the fact that Mahler begins the process of the resurrection with just a practically whispered Auferstehen, which means stand up, get up, stand up. Right. Ja, auferstehen. Instead of, you expect glory is going to flash across the sky and break like Hurricane Milton or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But he doesn't do that. It's a voice, you're asleep, and there's a voice in your ear, like your mother saying, get up.
Yeah.
It's time to go, we're going on a great vacation.
Yeah.
and
Yeah, I thought
I thought of my dad.
the last 6 minutes were phenomenal. And I didn't cry, but I got a little moist in the eye. But that was more because of how the chorus
I
sounded.
wondered on Sunday. I wondered actually
It was
if I
more
was
for the choral sound than... it's like you wish you could hear a certain choral sound at the San Diego Symphony, and then for years, and then it finally happened.
yeah.
This was the first time.
Another interesting thing about that is that we sang the initial section of the choral section sitting down.
Yes.
There
I
was
noticed.
no interrupt. Like, we stand up like this, and it kind of interrupts the moment. So we didn't do that. We stayed seated and just started singing
Yeah.
very quietly. And we didn't stand up until the just before Mitflügeln, with wings I will soar. Da da dee da 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 dee da 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 da, and that's where we stood up, and because that's where the power singing comes in,
Yeah.
and it was very effective doing it that way.
Yeah, logistically there was... It's not... I mean, what do you do? To make the chorus sit there from the beginning?
Yes,
You bring them in like this one did.
we came in after the end of the
movement.
first movement, which is half an
Do you
hour.
make the soloist stay out there, or the way they did it here? The contralto came out at the end of the third movement.
Did you like the little doorway
Yeah,
that
the
opens
little-
up? A section
little
of the
hidden door,
proscenium
yeah.
arch now comes out and moves aside. It's
Right.
like,
But then having the soloist come from the other side...
it's like a trapdoor in a pyramid. you know
Yeah,
what I'm saying?
it is. And not being downstage was... I mean, it was what they had to do. I'm sure they
And then they were upstage for the last section. Yeah.
It was,
I didn't mind that.
Yeah, it was a little... Actually, I've never seen it before.
Mm-hmm.
But there was not a lot of room at the foot of the stage.
No.
And they would have had to have been sitting there. They would
One
have,
wonders how they're going to get a larger orchestra in there for larger pieces. I mean,
what larger pieces?
well, like if they want to do the eighth.
Yeah, they don't want to do the eighth.
I think they would have to go out to the Viejas Arena at San Diego State and do it there. I don't think they. I don't think that. I really don't think that the theater could accommodate it.
No, that's... I mean, it was... Where was it held for its initial...
Well, I mean, they do it in places like the Concertgebouw, and that's not a huge theater, but I mean, it has lots of choral risers around the orchestra. So, I mean, I think on the whole, it was a very successful weekend, and I think it augurs great things for the symphony for the future. I am grateful that Irwin Jacobs saw fit to keep the orchestra downtown, which is an unenviable place to be at present. It's horrible. And the city of San Diego deserves a lashing for what they're allowing to go on our streets.
Although...
So, there you go.
There you go. We tried
If
to
I
be
were your
positive.
mayor, things would be different. I can tell you that right
Yeah,
now.
Okay. You should run.
Well, considering that politicians are one step below child abusers, I think I'll stay out of
Okay.
that game.
All right.
But anyway, there is hope. There's always hope, and $125 million later, the Fox Theater, Jacobs Music Center, is in prime condition and ready for another 100 years of use. There are a couple of little things that I wish were different. I'm not wild about the color scheme of the seats, and I'm not wild about the fact that they whitewashed over the original paint scheme
But
in the
that was
downstairs
previously
in the lobbies.
That was
They did that before they started this renovation.
That was 5-6
But I
years
think
ago.
that was I think that was very wrong. But
I
nevertheless,
agree with you. I don't like the blue seats. It reminds me of a television church. I need red for a theater.
I like red.
Yeah.
I think red is more opulent and in
Because
keeping.
if the concert's boring,
But is
if
this
the
because-
concert's boring and I need to slit my wrists to get some drama,
Then you won't get blood all over
right,
the
and
all over
no
the
one
upholstery.
notices. Yeah,
But is this because it's a Pacific Rim theater and we're thinking oceanically?
possibly. I don't know.
And I just love that theater so much. I love it. I love it. I love it.
Yeah. All right,
So there we are.
there we are.
Listen to your Mahler.
Or not.
Your choice. Oh, I'm very fond of two. I love the second movement. I really do.
We both agreed on that. That I found myself at the end of the first movement, I was kind of like, yeah, okay, you're scared to die.
In a little. Well,
And then the second movement, I was like, oh, well, this is nice.
but the third movement is great too, and I love the
Yeah,
fourth
it's
movement
fun.
as well. I mean, I didn't get to sit through the first movement because we came on stage at.
Well, it's disconnected
after the first-
by years from what
Well, it's
comes
life's
after it.
struggles, life's
I'm saying, but he wrote it at a certain point in his life, couldn't do anything with it, came back to it years later, and kind of, it's kind of like the eighth, with that first movement is kind of its own thing.
Yeah.
And then there's the rest of the.
But those
piece.
those interior movements are dynamite, and to watch the orchestra play it is a privilege. To sit above them and watch the combinations come and go, and watch the pairings and it's just absolutely fascinating. I mean, you could say the same for any great orchestration, but I think this one is also. It just adds so much to it. So, at some point or another, when you get a chance to sit in the choral terraces, they'll sell those as tickets when the choir's not using it. Sit up there and watch the orchestra from up close. It's an education.
Yeah.
I think it's totally worth
I think
it.
those are great seats.
And they've also taken the areas, the railings between the pillars up along the sides, and they've put little floors out, and they put chairs in there, and now you can sit in them like boxes. Great idea. They finally took me up on my idea. Never let it be said that people don't listen to what I say.
It's true.
And then also, as you walk out up at that level, up above the organ cases, there's a hallway up there now that walks out, and you can look out through the top of the organ case over the.
Really?
And that was never there before. You couldn't do that, and I think that's so cool.
The organ sounded pretty good at the finale. It didn't overpower the sound.
I could not hear it.
It was integrated.
I could not hear it from where I was.
It was integrated. I heard it, but I wasn't like, oh, there's.
I wonder how much of the pipe work they actually used, because it's a Morton theater organ, and how much they simply relied on digital electronics, which they have added to the organ to help it to produce a more classical sound.
Okay.
I've heard
You'll get to hear it a few times. There's the Respighi Roman.
they're doing the
festivals.
Sanson, aren't they?
Yeah, but the Roman festivals has a big bad organ part at the end,
I'm looking forward to that,
and then the Sanson Symphony No. 3 organ.
which is always fun.
It wasn't that fun last time. It was fine.
I had fun.
Did you hear it last time?
Yeah, I
They
think
did
so.
it?
Yeah, I heard it back in the '80s with Murray Sidlin conducting, and that was the pure theater organ. They just turned off the tremolo and used a selection of stops. And man, I tell you, those big 32-foot reeds shook the building. It was awesome.
Yeah.
I loved it. I loved it. So there's so much fun to be had in that building, so much education, so much culture. I felt really good about my choristers coming on Sunday, because none of them had ever been to a symphony concert like that before. And, culture has to be handed on.
I had never been to a symphony concert like that before because the chorus was fantastic.
Well,
It's true.
It's my-
I'm really gonna.
it's my pleasure.
I'm gonna keep coming back to that. That was.
No, it's true.
It was special.
It was different because normally we don't have that. And Part of it is that Frank Allman isn't there, kicking people's behinds all over the stage and making people cry.
Since the 90s.
But there was a flab that had crept into the master chorale and an excess. Let's face it, we're not a singing culture anymore. We don't have
Certainly
the
not
church
in
choirs
San Diego.
to draw on.
Right.
Well, I'm not sure any place does. And the reason that LA can muster up the master chorale is because it's a community of 8 million people. So you ought to be able to.
It's a AGMA union contract as well.
Yeah.
So you get people who are coming
Well,
from
perhaps.
elsewhere just for that contract.
Well, Agma and I are done, so this
Yeah,
was
me
not
too.
a union contract, and I didn't mind.
Yeah,
That's another discussion.
it is. Okay.
All right. Classical Rebellion.